Yo, what is up? Welcome to the channel. My name is Josh, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make pop punk type beats, just like this. The first thing I want to talk about are the guitars. So there are a couple main type of guitars that you're going to see in these pop punk type beats. The first is a melodic clean type tone. Sounds a little something like this. A lot of these are going to be played in an arpeggiated kind of fashion and are going to have some sort of preset or amp that doesn't have too much overdrive or distortion. For this, I just used STL Tone Hub and the Surf It preset by Zach Cervini. If you really want to focus on these pop punk type beats, I would highly recommend this plugin. The second kind of sound that you're going to want to have in your arsenal are palm muted guitars, and they sound a little something like this. This is the kind of typical pop punk type sound. Something you can also do with these is experiment between going from a muted sound to an open sound. And here's an example of that right here. You see how it's going like kind of just gives it a little bit of variation that can be really cool in certain sections of the song. After you've got your verse and pre-chorus down, it's time to dive into the hook. And this is where it gets real juicy, you know what I'm saying? The elements on the guitar you want to focus on in the hook are power chords and octaves. Here's what the main power chords are going to sound like. This is that stereotypical pop punk type sound. For this tone, I'm using STL Tone Hub on the crunchy guy. Oh yeah, you know what the deal is. And for these, you always want to do 2 takes of the part. One panned all the way to the left and then another panned all the way to the right, just to make it really nice and wide. Another trick you can do for these is to duplicate this power chord layer and then pitch it down 12. Once you do that, add OTT, take out a little bit of the lows, and you get this nice like little crunchy type sound. And this is what they sound like together. As you can kind of see, it adds a nice little sizzle on top, a little bit of crunch. And this is something that if your hook is lacking a little bit of oomph, you can kind of dial in to taste. After that, we've got the octaves. And so what octaves are just the same notes being played on the guitar in a certain melody. And this is what they sound like. Kind of messed up a little bit there, but you get the point. And this is what they sound like with the power chords. Another thing you can do to add even more emotion to your hook is add another layer of octaves, doing a different melody that kind of harmonizes off of everything else. And here's what all the guitars sound like together. And for the octaves, I'm using the Marshall Tremolo High Gain preset, once again in STL Tone Hub. If you want to add a little bit of variation to the second half of your hook, you can add a nice little arpeggiated kind of tone, sort of like in the verse. Sounds a little something like this. After the guitars, you want to dial in your drums and your bass. First, for the drums, you got to get your pattern down. A lot of the time, I'll either draw this in myself, just depending on the song, or I'll go find a groove in this Pop Punk Easy X kit. All right, and you can get this with either Superior Drummer or Easy Drummer. But if you don't have access to this, you could always use Travis Barker type samples that you can find on Splice, or I'm sure you can find them on Reddit somewhere. And so for this, the groove sounds a little bit like this. And then I changed it up in the hook and kind of opened it up a little bit. See, in the verses, you want to think using the hi-hats to keep the rhythm. And then in the hook, you either want to use an open hi-hat or a crash, just to make it sound bigger and more full. And then for the bass, there are a lot of things you can do for this, but I use the Pick Rock P bass specifically on this track. And this is what it sounds like. I also added the Chef's Omni channel just to give it a little bit more drive. And here's what it sounds like before and after. A lot of times at this stage, I'll notice that my track is lacking in the bass area and I want it to really hit me in the chest. What I do to overcome this is to add a sub on top of the bass. And this is what that sounds like. It just really solidifies that sub-frequency range. Once you've got your guitars, your drums, your bass rocking, there are a couple things you can do if you even want to spice it up a little bit more. The first thing is to add little candy like slides or feedback type loops. These are really useful right before the hook. And here's an example of one. Oh yeah. And then another thing you can do is add a droning sound on the hook, just to give it a nice ambience. What you want to remember for this is to usually put it in the key of your song, usually on the 1 chord. And here's what that sounds like in this particular song. A lot of times to create these kind of drones, I'll just take a reverse vocal sound, pitch it to be the key of the song. So if it's in B major, I would adjust it to a B note, so it'll sound like this. And then just to make it kind of drone and sustain, I'll just add a nice little reverb. Doesn't matter what reverb it is, and turn the mix all the way up, make the decay a little bit longer, kind of EQ it however, and you get a nice little drone. And here's what it sounds like in the context of the mix. I'm gonna turn it up just a little bit more so you can really hear it. And that, my friends, is how you make pop punk type beats. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Regardless of anything though, keep vibing, have an amazing week. I'll see you next time.